All right. Without any further ado, I would like to invite our guest speaker to the stage today. As the first female mayor in 20 years and only the second in history of St. Albert, Cathy Heron embodies the values of modern community. Serving her second term as mayor and throughout her leadership in St. Albert actively engages in environmental stewardship, responsible growth, and the rights of the First Nation and LGBTQ through respectful engagement within our community. A graduate of both the University of Alberta and NAIT, Mayor Heron values diverse knowledge, education, and experience as pillars for decision-making. In addition to her education, Mayor Heron has extensive experience in regional governance, including 2 terms as a city councillor prior to her election in 2017. Mayor Heron understands the value of leading by example. She serves as president of the Alberta Municipalities Association, Board of Directors for Alberta Recycling Management Association, and 4 years as a director of the Alberta Capital Region Wastewater Commission, and an active role in the Capital Region Growth Plan Task Force, and many more. The result is extensive and diverse relationships throughout the region with elected civil and business stakeholders that collaborate with her for a long and respected city of St. Albert's life. With her partner, John, they have a vibrant blended family of 7 children, from teen to adults, and the much-loved family dog, Boomer. She loves the outdoors, and on weekends they can be found sailing in Wabamun and camping at any one of the beautiful campgrounds in Alberta. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mayor Heron.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed Lauren's poem. We added that to the annual State of the City a couple years ago. Keep going. Her latest poem, Joy, does bring a few tears to my eyes because I think it speaks to many municipalities in Alberta, but of course the fondest one is here in St. Albert, and I love that. So thank you for attending and for your interest in the city of St. Albert. So last year, I quoted, in my speech I quoted, and I said, the opposite of love is not hate, the opposite of love is indifference. That was the theme of my speech last year, but I look at around the room today and I say there's no doubt that the people in this room are not indifferent, and it's clear that our Chamber of Commerce loves our city. I wanted to take a quick moment to congratulate the Chamber for receiving the Chamber of the Year and Shelley Nicol for receiving Executive Director of the Year by the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. So a State of the City is essentially just a glimpse. It's a moment in time. And so today I'll be speaking mainly about Council's strategic plan and the areas of focus for this term. Before I start, I want to take a moment and thank a few people who, without their support, I could not serve as your mayor. My kids. Holly is with me. Heather and Will are not here today. I have 4 stepkids, Rebecca, Gabe, Jacob, and Susanna. And they were always very understanding of my super busy schedule. And then my mom and dad are also with us here today. And of course, without their great parenting and deciding to move to St. Albert in 1969, I may never have had this opportunity, which I find amazing. And finally, John, my biggest champion, always at my side and always encouraging me and cheering me on. And according to my bio, I should probably thank Boomer, because he's one of the most recognized faces in St. Albert. I have to admit, I really struggled with writing my speech this year. You see, 2023 has been a year of laying groundwork for St. Albert's future and growth. There's been no real drama or exciting challenges for our council to overcome to make this speech exciting. So this year I'm changing the format up a bit. I've got a panel of experts to talk about our economic development plans and our competitive advantage. And that'll come a little later, but I'll get back to my speech for now. So Ray Gibbon Drive, who Minister McIver was there for the groundbreaking, which was fantastic. It is now complete from our border with the city of Edmonton all the way to McKenney Ave. And we can all agree that the traffic is flowing so much better than it was 6 years ago. St. Albert Trail north of Drew is another major road system that needed work, and that project is continuing, and the finished project is already starting to show through, and it's really going to be great. These ambitious infrastructure projects will enhance connectivity, making it easier for our residents and our businesses to navigate our beautiful city. It's very exciting for me, and I'm sure many of you, to see niche developments back at work. This is a development on the corner of St. Albert Trail and St. Anne Street. Many of you remember it as the Blind Pig Pub. Although the groundbreaking ceremony was quite a few years ago, we should now see development at this site proceed quite quickly over the winter. This will be Canada's first zero-emission multi-tenant rental. Another groundbreaking ceremony I participated in this term was Riverbank Landing. This is a master-planned, walkable community with the right balance of premium character residences, restaurants, shops, wellness and professional services, and of course, an abundant access to nature. And finally, another notable mixed-use development is being built by Landrex along St. Albert Trail in our north. The East Villages is a $170 million project in partnership with Fort McKay First Nation. There was a groundbreaking ceremony earlier this summer for this development, which will add 3 new apartment buildings, 183 units, and 100,000 square feet of commercial space. I want to commend Landrex for partnering with Fort McKay First Nation on this development. Their partnership is an example of how St. Albert's residents and businesses are honoring our connection with our First Nations and Métis peoples, and how far we have come in truth and reconciliation. We still have a long way to go, but when a journey is this important, it's okay to look back and recognize how far we've come while continuing to move forward. These 3 examples of density are unique in our region, outside of Edmonton, of course. These, I feel, are more than just groundbreaking ceremonies for these developments. They are groundbreaking developments. Last year, sorry, Bill hates that picture. And I said I'll laugh when I see it on the screen, but we are so proud of our new city manager. The feedback we've received on Bill from residents and staff and stakeholders alike has been overwhelmingly positive. Bill, I want to thank you for all you do and for your strong and silent leadership style. It has really benefited our city. Thank you. If you were around St. Albert 6 years ago, you'll remember some of the infighting and drama that was our city council. From lawsuits to nasty attack ads, that fighting is a thing of the past, and while this council doesn't always agree on everything, I want to tip my hat to the 6 hardworking people on council who professionally represent our city every day. Today we have Councillors McKay, Jolly, Hughes, Bermancy, and Killick in the room. Councillor Broadhead is attending a transit conference and sends his best wishes. To all 6 of you, I want to express a gratitude of an entire city. You're doing a great job and representing our city with the class that a professional council should show. You make me proud. Please stand up and be recognized. The hardest challenge for this council has actually been the lack of drama. It's easy to get riled up and fight. Adrenaline is a powerful motivator, but it's harder to be passionate when things are quiet. It's less exciting to stay the course and navigate calm waters. In the fall of 2021, my fellow councillors supported my nomination and election to the presidency of Alberta Municipalities. As you all know, I'm passionate about local government as well as regional cooperation. So this was a logical evolution to push those concepts to a provincial level. Not all of the solutions to our problems will be found in St. Albert. Many communities have tried, they've failed, they've succeeded, and they've learned. So for me, it's been best to learn from them rather than starting from scratch ourselves. As president of Alberta Municipalities, I've had a unique perspective to look into the operations of literally hundreds of cities and towns and bringing what I've learned back to St. Albert. But I can say every time I do travel to a community in our great province, I'm always reminded of how special St. Albert is when I return. This role has kept me extremely busy, and it is now drawing to an end. I'm grateful for the support of both my council and our staff. It's been 2 years of growth not only for myself, but also for my council who have stepped up into leadership roles. So council is halfway through our term. We have laid the foundations for achieving the goals of our strategic plan, and I'm pretty darn proud of what we've achieved. As a reminder, the areas of strategic focus are on the screen behind me. But because I'm speaking to the Chamber today with limited time, I'm just going to focus on the first 3. So financial sustainability. Our biggest challenge right now isn't sexy or exciting. It's a boring financial one. One of the biggest future issues for us to overcome is funding. The dramatic inflation of 2022-23 has hurt the city's budget, just like everyone else's. Before this recent inflation, St. Albert diligently cut unnecessary expenses, making our organization as lean as we possibly could. That's why St. Albert was seeing an average of 1.95% tax increases over the last decade, while other municipalities were handing out their residents 3 to 5 increases or even higher. As president of Alberta Municipalities, I see the numbers and the challenges of other cities, and some have seen over 10% tax increases. We are going to obviously face tax increases. 7% inflation is not something anyone can hide from. All orders of government do their best to try and limit expenses and maximize revenues. But sometimes these efforts can hurt other orders of government. This chart shows the cumulative downloading of provincial expenses onto municipalities across Alberta. And of course, municipalities only have one place to go to replace those funds, and that's municipal property taxes. The government has also cut about 50% of our infrastructure grant. Approximately $7 million is missing from the City of St. Albert now, or it will be next year. That's about a 6% tax increase to compensate for this loss. Or the other option, of course, is to not build, to not repair, not maintain, or replace any of our assets. As President of Alberta Municipalities, I have to recognize that Minister MacGyver is in the room. He works hard and diligently to support municipalities across Alberta, and he does a good job of advocating for us. And I did warn him I was going to be a little negative on the province. Interest rates affect the city too. Council is super cautious, I can say, about taking on debt. There are appropriate times to do so, and we are currently working on a debt strategy to identify when and where to take on debt, considering the huge investments our city needs to make in the next few years. It's also important to point out there is a mechanism for us to borrow from the province. In 2021, the provincial government announced that loans provided to municipalities by the government would be charged at higher interest rates, similar to that of a large municipality could get from the bond market, resulting in an increase of approximately 0.5% interest rates for municipal loans. At the time, this decision was justified by the pandemic-related fiscal uncertainties. For the City of St. Albert, this increased interest rate resulted in an extra $1.48 million in interest paid in 22. So we're hoping that instead of utilizing municipal projects as a profit center, the provincial government, we're hoping, will reinstate the policy of offering below market rate interest loans to save taxpayer dollars and ensure municipalities are provided with financing options required to continue to grow this province. Our city does have a resolution at the convention next week calling on the province to do just that. Our next priority is economic prosperity. Economically, we are thriving. St. Albert is a hub for entrepreneurs and businesses, both big and small. Our city has become a magnet for talent, offering a rich tapestry of opportunities in various sectors, from technology to logistics, plastics, and more. This diversity makes St. Albert a vibrant and dynamic place to live, work, and play. The summer months have been very productive for industrial development in St. Albert. Quadrail's Anthony Business Park is located along Ray-Gibbon Drive, and it saw a great deal of activity with over 400,000 square feet of Class A warehouse space being constructed this year. The City of St. Albert's industrial vacancy rate sits at a mere 0.8%, which is obviously substantially lower than the rest of the Edmonton region, and it's a clear indicator of continued sector growth as leasing activity flourishes, which is why our next step is really the Lakeview Business District. This much-needed third business park has been long in the making. I think it's been a part of my State of the City for at least 3 years, and it's time to make this a reality. We are essentially out of industrial land. Last term, we made significant advancements towards servicing the piece of land known as Lakeview Business District. We got utilities across Ray-Gibbon Drive. Now we are determined to complete the on-site servicing so we can welcome new businesses to St. Albert and start collecting tax revenues and create over 7,000 jobs. Currently, we're preparing an area structure plan for the west side of St. Albert, which will include Lakeview. And I can say generally, strategic priorities are all equal. We have 5 and they're essentially equal, but in this case, I think I can safely say, without my council's blessing, this is our number 1 priority. Downtown. I need to shine a spotlight on a pivotal aspect of our future: the downtown revitalization of St. Albert. Downtown St. Albert, with its charming streets, historic architecture, and vibrant cultural scene, holds a special place in all our hearts. However, like all great cities, we must evolve to meet the challenges of the present while preserving the essence of what makes us unique. There is a richness and a deep sense of belonging that comes from living in a community such as ours with so much history. Our downtown is not just a place, it is a center of our community and the location where it all began. Of course, this happens as soon as I get at the mic. Sorry. I am excited to announce that the grassroots initiative I mentioned at last year's State of the City has become a reality. The business improvement area came to council last night, and I'm so pleased to announce the bylaw was unanimously passed, and the BIA will be a game changer for our downtown, and a big thanks goes to Michelle McDonald and Shannon Roche for leading this effort, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that at the panel. Another big catalyst for the downtown, of course, will be Millennium Park. Open waterfronts create the connective tissue that binds the city together, and they spur on so much economic development from the vendors and tourists and the development that springs up around them. This park will represent our personality, who we are as a city. We are community, we are a green space, river, history, art, everything essentially Lauren's had in her poem. We want to create a space that is truly for all residents and a common experience to take advantage of our beautiful river while protecting it at the same time. Millennium will bring financial growth to St. Albert, which is always welcome, but it will also provide something that is priceless by unifying a city and helping create and define our soul. Last month, Councillor Broadhead brought forward a request for a boring bylaw to push this initiative forward faster than it was originally planned, and I'm happy to report it was once again unanimously supported by Council, because this Council gets it. Our strategic plan has a few other priorities. We need to be intentionally strategic about our environment and adapting to changing weather while curbing our contributions to climate change. We also need to tackle housing and homelessness and the many other social issues facing a growing city and essentially every community in Canada. While these conversations are incredibly important to the future of St. Albert, I don't have the time to delve into them today. I've chosen to focus on our financial and economic goals in recognition that we're at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. People say read the room, right? So I also point out that none of the social, cultural, or infrastructure goals that we have can be sustained without a healthy business community and the revenues coming into this community we all love. As I mentioned, I thought it'd be more engaging conversation would be why St. Albert? As such, I've been fortunate enough to gather some prominent experts to the stage to share their thoughts on why St. Albert is the best place to invest in the near and the long term. So I'll get you guys to start coming to the stage. Many of you know Chris McLeod. I actually had invited Malcolm, Bruce. He has COVID. So easily stepping in is Chris, who is Edmonton Global's Vice President and Global Marketing and Communications. He leads the building and execution of an international brand and investment strategy for the Edmonton metropolitan region. An experienced leader and active community volunteer, Chris has a strong track record of bringing people together. He is the past chair of St. Albert's Economic Sustainability Advisory Council and has served on several boards, including the St. Albert Chamber of Commerce, and a St. Albert resident, so he'll be great on our panel. Braylon Klemchuk started his career at CBRE in 2014 as an intern for the Edmonton Industrial Team. He has since advanced himself to an associate vice president role focusing on tenant landlord representation and the acquisition disposition of industrial properties throughout the greater Edmonton area. Throughout his tenure at CBRE, Braylon has been lead broker of over 1 million square feet of leasing assignments and 75 million worth of sales transactions. And of course, Michelle McDonald. Michelle is a journeyman chef and owner of Tris Wines and Small Plates. Her goal is to provide a unique dining experience for the residents of St. Albert. Michelle works in all aspects of the restaurant, from cooking to cleaning to accounting. She earned her culinary arts degree in 2016 from NAIT, where she graduated top of her class. I think it's also important to point out that Tris was named the best new restaurant of 2022 in Edify magazine and has appeared on the Open Table Top 100 Places to Eat in Canada in 2022. Thanks. We're going to try to make this a little bit free flow. We met a little bit earlier just to kind of talk about themes. I'm going to ask all of them. The question that I started with is why St. Albert? So Chris, why don't you go first?
Sure. Thanks so much, Cathy. And it's wonderful to be here and see so many friends and colleagues from across the years, even neighbors. In deference to the mayors and the councillors from other parts of the region, I'm going to start a little bit with why the region and what makes St. Albert unique inside that. So, like, first of all, there probably is only 2 or 3 places in the world that have the kind of economic opportunity that the Edmonton region has right now. And a lot of that's tied to hydrogen and the entire net zero future. The whole world is shifting to net zero. And really, we are, again, probably the top 2, 3 places in the world with the kind of opportunity we have. And how we're going to take advantage of that largely is we have one of the youngest populations in the Western world. We've got one of the most educated populations in the world, and we're growing incredibly fast. So this is a young, educated, and growing community. Again, the major sectors where we've got a ton of activity, clean tech, particularly hydrogen and carbon capture. We've been inviting people here from around the world to attend a couple of massive international conferences, including Carbon Capture Canada, which had 4,500 people here last week from more than 20 countries. Food and ag, in particular, value-added agriculture, and St. Albert in particular has some really exceptional opportunity, I think, in value-added ag. Supply chain logistics. Our region actually is a really incredible location when you realize that the world is round and not flat. We're super close to Asia. It's actually only a 4-minute flying difference between Edmonton to Shanghai compared to Vancouver. And the turn times at our airports and the speed of our airport is way faster. We're closer by rail through the Port of Prince Rupert. And St. Albert's position in this, connected on the Yellowhead, the Anthony Henday, Highway 2, Villeneuve Airport, the CN rail line. The opportunity for supply chain logistics is massive here. And I think the only thing holding us back right now is just the availability of land to build on. Because I think you could fill it tomorrow if you had the space. And then AI and tech is really the last one. And again, our region is one of the top places in the world. We've been in the top 2 or 3 for like 25 years because of the leadership of the University of Alberta and the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. And again, St. Albert has one of the most educated workforces in the province. And there's a ton of AI talent here and tech talent here. And if we can start to leverage that into more businesses in that Lakeview Business Park, it's going to just take off.
Braylon, you want to go next?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me today, Mayor Heron. So further to what Chris was alluding to is that St. Albert has a unique advantage over lots of areas in the capital region. It's cost competitive on both a residential tax base and a non-residential tax base. Gives it a leg up on some other municipalities in the area. The labor force, St. Albert has a population of approximately 70,000 people, and further what Chris alluded to is it's young and educated. The position where St. Albert's located within the Henday presents a unique opportunity for transportation, logistics, and warehousing at Anthony Henday Business Park. They've currently developed about 900,000 square feet of industrial space, and there's about another 400,000 square feet that's coming on the market in the next 6 months. And there's been great feedback from companies we've been touring and people that live in St. Albert and that want to stay here. And so the warehouses we have going up there present unique opportunities for businesses to get kind of in the heart of St. Albert and be directly connected to Anthony Henday Drive.
Awesome. Speaking of the heart of St. Albert, Michelle, I'll ask you, why St. Albert? And then I'm going to actually let you then free flow into some of your thoughts of what we can do in our downtown and maybe talk about the BIA.
Thank you for having me here today, Mayor Heron. My why is a little more personal. I lived here for 40 years. I got married here twice. I raised my children here. My husband works in the community. So why St. Albert? For me, it was an obvious choice to start my restaurant downtown. Location just happened to come up. The decision to buy it took us 2 weeks. Took us 2 months to get it ready for opening, and then March 7th of 2020, we opened our doors. I'll let that sink in because 2 weeks later, we were closed for the first time out of 7 due to COVID. So I love this community. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about the downtown location, especially because I think I'm a traveler. I've seen many, many downtowns across the world, and I really believe that our downtown core could be something really special. It just needs a little oomph and a little, maybe some people to do some legwork. Myself and Shannon Roche have taken up the the task of doing some legwork to get the BIA started. And as Mayor Heron told you already, we were successful in getting that passed yesterday. So we're really excited, a little trepidatious because now the real work starts. But we're looking forward to it because it's a big step. The BIA is an association that's provincially governed, but it's an association made up of business owners, which if you want to revitalize an area, you need to have the businesses on board. And this will be a way for us to come together as a group and to decide what our priorities are and to really start pushing forward with the revitalization. I think that with the right steps, we could be a real destination for people the rest of the week, other than Saturdays for the market.
I agree. We'll get to it. I'm going to go back to you, Braylon. So I talked about Lakeview. Mm-hmm. It'll be different from what you're dealing with in Quad Real because Quad Real is all leasing. Lakeview could have different opportunities. So can you maybe expound on what you might see as a trend into when we put a shovel in the ground, hopefully at the end of 25 for Lakeview? Yep.
So yeah, further to what Mayor Heron was saying is that Anthony Henry Business Park is owned by a pension fund and kind of shows their long-term commitment in the area. But Lakeview Business Park will present a different, situation for owner users or owner operators for the ability to acquire land and to build their own building and own it. Which, Mayor Heron said earlier is that the vacancy rate in St. Albert is incredibly low. It's unhealthy, to be honest. And so the new land, I think, in 5 years' time or even now, I think will be very well received by owners because I deal with questions all the time. Hey, I'm looking to expand in St. Albert. Or, hey, I want to stay in St. Albert. Or I'm looking for warehousing space. And there's lots of companies that, quite frankly, there's nothing available. And you're losing some of that tax base and some of those companies to other municipalities as well. So Lakeview can't come quick enough, I think, for most St. Albert businesses will agree with me on that.
Yeah, you told me when we had our coffee this morning that you had a request from someone to lease in St. Albert.
Yeah.
And then you showed them everything in Edmonton and they're like...
Yeah, exactly. I sent them a list of properties available in the region. And they were like, well, how come you didn't include St. Albert? And I was like, unfortunately, there's the building that's available is kind of an apples to oranges comparison for what you need. So, and they're, it's a common theme.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Chris, I always like teasing you. So how can St. Albert elevate ourselves in the region? We're far away from the airport. We're closer to the Villeneuve, but we are far away from the international. Far away from some of the big industrial parks that are well known, like Nisku and Acheson. So what should St. Albert be trying to do as a council and an administration to attract some of those businesses here, the international ones?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's play to your strengths. And so, I mean, what are the big strengths of St. Albert? It's the educated workforce, one of the most educated in the country, let alone in the province. And a lot of those people, I think, would like to be living and working in the same community. So you've got, I think, a workforce that's pretty active to be able to link here. There's a lot of business happening around St. Albert, especially looking more to the north. And a lot of those companies want service firms and other types of higher end work connected to them. So there's a tremendous opportunity to build that kind of a base here. But again, I'll go back to that idea of the supply chain logistics piece. That CN main line, the roadways, the connection to Villeneuve, there's a real ability to build, I think, a pretty spectacular supply chain logistics hub here. And really, in a global sense, you're not very far from the airport. So it's even to pull in, that connection to the international airport is not going to be hard. So I think it's leaning into that. I think the other thing I'd say is that St. Albert's done a really good job at speeding up their development process. St. Albert used to be known as a community that was the slowest to move. Now if it's not the fastest, it's among it. And so being, predictable, transparent, and working at speed is absolutely critical, and you're getting better and better at that. And a company will want to go from, idea to vertical quickly, and they can do it here.
Just to cut in
here
real quick. So what Chris alluded to is at Anthony Henry Business Park, there's a company called Uline, who's a world-class company that deals with shipping products. and they were previously located elsewhere, and they were drawn to St. Albert or Anthony Henday Business Park because it's kind of has a different approach. There's more walking paths, there's more greenery, and they're an employer that will pay their employees more than comparable industries. And for that, they really value amenities and kind of the green space. And it's kind of not your traditional industrial park that you would think of. It kind of has a different flair, taking some elements of landscaping and nature.
Council did a tour of Uline about 3 or 4 weeks ago, or months ago. It's amazing, and we heard from the manager there that the owner, when they came to St. Albert, liked the flowers in our entrance sign. So then that was one of the reasons they chose St. Albert. So that's yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. Quality of life, I think, is super important, and you talked about it, Chris, playing to our strengths. And so quality of life leads to a vibrant downtown. So Michelle, you're now responsible with your BIA to help us revitalize the downtown. So I'd like to hear, I know you don't have a board yet and you can't speak on behalf of the BIA, but you're down there frequently. What would be the vision for, let's say, 3 or 4 years from now in our downtown?
Oh, my vision, hustle and bustle and lots of families and just, lots of little boutique shops, restaurants. Maybe we're closing off, a section of the street on Friday, Saturday, like they do in other downtowns, so that it's just walking traffic, patios. We're thinking facade programs to, just help some of those buildings that need a little more oomph, that are looking a little run down. Festivals, just having, we want downtown to be a lifestyle, not a destination. We want people to just naturally decide to come down and take a walk and have a drink and see other people they know there, and we can do it. I believe we can do it, and we're taking good strides towards that. And yeah, I just think that our downtown has the potential to be spectacular.
Can I chime in on that? Because I agree 100%. And there's been all these studies about what attracts people, and the answer is other people. So it's what you need to do is find ways to bring more people into the downtown. So I love that idea of closing the street. Close Perron maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. Get people out. Bring in some musicians to be on the street. Have more seating out on the street. Bring in some cool lighting on the street. You don't need to do and spend a lot of money to make it happen, but you've got to make it feel like it's a place and a destination, that there's things happening and that there's other people there, so it makes it safe and attractive. And I think building this association is going to be a really, really big asset. So go after it.
Do you guys agree with that? Yeah, I think that. And we always talk about residential and non-residential, different tax bases, but they're so connected. To have a successful downtown, we need people, not just for foot traffic, but for labor. So the city has donated a piece of land in our downtown. We're hoping to work with Homeland. We actually are working with Homeland Housing to build a affordable housing. So, but it will be mixed. So, there will be one door that will be below market, one door that won't be. You'll never know who's getting subsidized. But it'll be good for our downtown because it will bring foot traffic past Trust every day. And but it'll also be good for people, obviously, because there's a housing crisis in Canada. We're all aware of that. I mentioned 3 big mixed-use developments that St. Albert's bringing on. I'm totally remiss to mention, when I introduced my panel, there was a 4th picture up there. You might have noticed that. And I forgot to say that Paul Lanny, the president and CEO of Averton, who is got COVID. So it's a COVID issue, this panel. But Paul has been so strategic and so bullish in St. Albert, and he's been building the residential development right across the street from the Joy Center. So when you're leaving, take a good look at it. It's 80 units per hectare. Edmonton's been mandated to build to 40 units per hectare, and many mayors fought 40 units per hectare, but we're seeing it done at 80 and more. And then council is going to be having a public hearing next month on 2 very tall towers right across the street from Lakeview Business District, which I think is fantastic to bring in the labor force that business district is going to need. So I think we're doing it all with residential and trying to develop the non-residential and industrial work. So I really don't have a lot more unless you guys want to add real quick. Anything?
Well,
Because we can
I'll
take
add
some
in-
questions from the floor as
Maybe
well.
I'll add in just to touch on that the relationship between business and being able to live.
Right.
So we talk a lot about affordability, but in a lot of ways it's about accessibility. People want to be able to access a place to live. I've got kids in their early 20s. Right now, it's going to be tough for them to live in St. Albert if they bought their own place. There's not a lot that's affordable. So projects like Midtown that Averton's building, some of these, kind of mid-rise buildings, gives younger people that piece that's missing in St. Albert from the early 20s to maybe the mid-30s. It gives them a way to get in. And as we start to build out some of these larger developments, in the West Lake or in the Lakeview district, they're going to need people to work there that are a variety of pay scales. So having some of those people be able to live here is critically important, both for the quality of life and the growth of the industry.
And if they can't live here, we have transit. We will bring them in on our transit system. Someday a regional one.
As a parent of 4 adult children who all live in Edmonton, but who would like to live in St. Albert, it's huge. I'd love for my kids to be 2 minutes away from me, and they're just not. Right. So it's important.
I mentioned in my speech, my mom and dad brought us here in 1969, but when I first got married and had kids, I had to go to Edmonton. Then as soon as the kids actually came along, we had to come back to St. Albert because it's the best place to raise a family. Anyway, it is 1:25, and I think that was my cutoff time. So Mike, I'll let you close this off. I just want to thank the three of you for taking some time, kind of spicing up the state of the city and letting some different voices to talk about why St. Albert's so great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.